I belong to you. How does it go?
Although we've come to the end of the road,
till I can let
still
oh,
I
whatever.
can't,
Still, what?
still I can't let go. It's unnatural. You belong to me. I belong to you. Okay.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk about romance. True romance. Thank you again for joining us at the Matters of the Heart podcast, and we hope that you can enjoy this moment of just embracing the beauty of marriage. And I love you very much, and I'm ready to go. Let's do this. Let's do this. So today's topic is true romance, and we're gonna get a little bit of it. I'm actually gonna read a Bible verse that's gonna sound very strange to read it, but I think it has a lot to do with this. Okay, you've probably seen many people, maybe some couples that you know even at church, or maybe even yourself. You're finding yourself that you have lost a little bit of that fire in your marriage, and it's like they're covered with rust. After a while, when you don't use certain things, it becomes rusty. Man, we're made to wear out, not rust out. So it's very important to keep it going. They've lost that loving feeling.
You've lost
that lovely feeling.
I'm
ruining the song.
It's that loving feeling.
Okay, but according to what I'm reading here,
okay,
in my teleprompter, I have to say loving feeling to change it up. Okay, but the moment you forsake your first love, which it talks a lot about that in the Bible, the importance of first love, it's like trading pure gold for a rusty piece of scrap metal. Okay, and so the secret to proving your marriage so you can keep that fire going is romance. And we're going to talk about this in a different kind of way, because I know sometimes when you think about romance, you think about what does the woman want, right? But it's really for both. Okay, marriage couples don't take romance seriously. They give up on it, or think it's only for young lovers, like that first, that honeymoon stage. But you should be in your honeymoon stage forever. It should be getting sweeter and sweeter. Okay. So, but think about this. If you celebrated your marriage every month instead of just once a year, Valentine's year, or if you Valentine's Day, or if you remember your anniversary, which is you should, your relationship wouldn't improve much. It'll be just a once a year thing, and you need it to happen at least. It needs to be more part of our lives, romancing ourselves. Our marriage is so important. And so I want to read Revelation chapter 2, verse 1 through 5. I will say that this is a story of the end time churches, and he's referring to one of these churches, the Ephesus church, and what's going on with them. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into it. Revelation 2, verse 1 through 5. It says, "Write the following to the messenger of the congregation in Ephesus. For these are the words of the one who holds the 7 stars firmly in his right hand, who walks among the 7 golden lampstands. I know all that you've done for me. You have worked hard and persevered. I know that you don't tolerate evil. You have tested those who claim to be apostles and proved they are not, for they were impostors. I also know how you have bravely endured trials and persecutions because of my name. Yet you have not become discouraged. But I have this against you. You have abandoned the passionate love you had for me at the beginning. Think about how far you have fallen. Repent and do the works of love you did at first. I will come to you and remove your lampstand from its place of influence if you do not repent." Now, obviously, this is referring to a church, okay? But if you understand to some, this is a mystery. To some, this mystery of our relationship as a church with God, it's very similar. It's supposed to reflect the relationship of a marriage. Okay?
Husband and wife.
Husband and wife, bride and groom. Okay, and so we see this kind of like discouraging. You know, it starts out you doing this. It's like you're a provider. You know, you fight for your family. You know, you make sure their needs are being met. Then the physical needs of material needs are being met, but you stop loving me. That may sound like some men, maybe some women, I don't know, but it definitely kind of reflects on the dangers of how men can find themselves in a marriage. You know, where, you know, hey, I provide. You know, I give you all the things. You can go to, like we learned on Sunday, you can go to HEB. You can go to anywhere you go. I'll let you spend whatever you want. Why are you complaining? Why? Because there's a need for love to be expressed. And that's something that we talked about. We've been talking about it in our church, about worship being love expressed, romance being love being expressed. And it's so important that we kindle that fire in our marriage where romance is flourishing. Okay, so that's very important. So I just thought that was really interesting about that. So we want to go into understanding romance. I don't know if you wanted to kind of...
Well, I have a question for those that are viewing us right now. Can you briefly share with us how you met your spouse and the romantic things that you did for each other while dating? Because when we're dating, we don't hold nothing back. We bring out all the cheesy stuff. We do everything because we want to win over our spouse, or at that time we want to conquer the person that we're interested in. So we do so many things. What are some of the romantic things that you did for each other while dating? Do you remember some of the things you did?
Our first encounter?
Yeah, some of the romantic things that you did.
Okay. You're getting me in trouble, girl. I remember the first thing, the very, very, very first thing is, it wasn't anything that I gave you. It was the conversation that I had with you in the car. Wait,
what was that?
When I first told you how I felt about you.
Oh, that was awesome.
And I dedicated this. Well, the thing is that I had told our situation is very in some cases kind of backwards, you know, because we were best friends, simply just friends. Then became best friends. She was interested in other guys. I was interested in other girls, and we would share those interests together, and we hung around all the time. We really were best buds. Okay, and unfortunately, she started praying. I said fortunately. Fortunately, she started praying and looking at me a little bit different.
And the Lord responded.
And the Lord said, "What did He say to you?"
The Lord won.
He said, what do you call it? You were faithful with the little, and
He will give you the much.
Faithful servant.
No, we were best friends. You were an amazing friend, and Dennis would always tell me things about girls and stuff like that. And one day, it started to bother me. I was like, "You don't have anything else to talk about except, can you talk about anything else?" That's when I knew that, oh Lord, I started seeing you differently.
Yeah, and so there was a song. I love music, so there was a song that I told her that I would never dedicate to anyone unless it's the person that I knew I wanted to be with. And so this was like months, probably if not a year before I dedicated. So when I had that moment in the car, and actually before I did that, I met with your mom at IHOP.
Found out later.
At IHOP, I met with her mom and asked for her permission, and then I went and I took you out.
I think those things are, I think we are losing that, in today's culture where the young men, they go to the parents for the blessing. That was really kind. Yeah. That impressed my mom in such a way at the time. She said, "This young man is different," but we kind of lose that. I would love for us, to bring that back.
Yeah. And so I dedicated a song. I played the song. That's all I did.
And I knew.
And you weren't even looking at me.
No, I started
You were
crying.
looking at the window, the side window. You wouldn't look at me at all until finally you turned around and you were crying.
Because I knew what that meant.
But I knew exactly what that meant. So I know that there's other things that we've done, but we're going to talk about that a little bit more because I think we have a misunderstanding of what romance is. And so it's very important to cover it. So understanding romance. Romance is one of the least understood issue in marriage. It renews and protects your relationship. Okay, so it's very important that we understand that when romance is active in a marriage, it protects it. It's almost like, I don't even have I had one, but I don't know if I should say it. But it's kind of like, it's like a protective covering.
A cocoon.
No, I was thinking more like when you wax a car, you make it super shiny. Anyways, it protects the paint. It protects the body. So I think this union is protected very well with romance.
You're thinking cars, and I'm thinking butterflies.
Yes, I know. Cocoon, cocoon. Okay, and the other thing is that romance is not a feeling; it's a behavior that you control. It's a controlled behavior.
We're not always going to feel romantic.
Yeah. It's not like in the movies where you just can't help yourself and you just, wherever you're at, that's where it happens. No. That's not romance. That's more of a lust.
Yeah.
But
it's
romance.
Purposeful, intentional.
It's intentional. It's purposeful. I love that. And you're going to hear that quite a bit, intentional, in this series, because for marriage to be under God's perfect plan, there has to be intentionality to it. Romance is not just for women.
What?
Every person needs romance.
What?
Yes.
I know.
You'd be surprised, but every person needs romance. Every man needs romance. Okay?
Men don't want to hear that.
I know, just like, no. Okay, but we're going to go into more why we're saying that, okay? Romance is more than a seasonal extra for Valentine's Day or an anniversary. It's an essential daily element in a successful marriage.
Daily.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Okay, so here's another question. I'm going to give you another question. Ladies, what are some ways you would like your husband to be romantic with you now in your relationship?
Let us know.
Or how about the guys? For husbands, what are some of the ways that you would like your wives to be romantic with you in your relationship? I think that's a question that I think every couple should, every now and then, they should talk about these things. I have a comment here. I was raised with a single mom, 3 kids, single mom. I don't know who I was having. I think I was having this conversation with Pri. But I was raised in a single home with, raised in a home of a single mom with 3 kids. So my mom worked really hard just to provide for us, And so we didn't have and I'm sure many people have that, but we didn't have a lot of the luxuries. There were a lot of times that we were missing out some things. My mom did the best, So why am I bringing that up? When I get married, I'm still carrying with me that, save and don't waste money and things like that. So maybe in the beginning, I think in the beginning of our marriage, I had this thought of, don't buy me flowers because flowers die. And that's a waste of money. We can purchase something with that. We can do something with that money, But there came a point where I just
let that go.
No, I just said,
you know what? Let it go real good.
I love flowers. I know that some people may still feel that way, but I love flowers. And then it wasn't until I told you that, because I had told you previously, don't buy flowers because it's a waste of money. But then I think it's because of Ruthie. I want Ruthie to experience, my daughter, her name is Ruthie, and I've always wanted her to experience and see what it is to have a loving marriage. So it was important that she sees that you buy me flowers and that I appreciate flowers and that it's something normal, because then some guy comes into her life and brings her flowers that it's not, oh, my dad does that to my mom, buys flowers for my mom, or even buys me flowers because you've bought flowers for Ruthie. But things like that, that's an example of how your past, if we don't notice it, it can affect the romance. You know, those little things are important. So Dennis buys me flowers and I put them in my island and I love them.
And I'm trying to keep it going. So whenever you start seeing the flowers kind of then, you know, start dying, then okay, it's time to reload that romance.
Yes. So how about you? What are some things, romantic things that you appreciate from your wife? Me, I'm your wife.
That is right. Yeah. Some of the things that I appreciate is, I think it's just, and we're going to go into it in a little bit, but it's just the way you, sometimes even just the way you look at me.
Oh, here's the story. Yesterday we were at our daughter's, our daughter had received a scholarship yesterday.
I get nervous when you have my phone.
Yeah, but our daughter received a scholarship yesterday from Texas A&M. It was a surprise. And I was taking pictures of Ruthie, but all of a sudden I see you all by yourself, so I'm like, let me take pictures of her dad. He's so handsome. And so just little things like that, just to know that I'm thinking about you, or you, I just love you so much, and you're the most important person in my life. Things like that. I think it's important that your spouse knows that that's how you feel about them.
Yeah, and it's important to know the needs and the desires, which is the next thing that I want to talk about when it comes to romance, is what elements you need. And so element number 1 is meeting an unspoken need or desire. So romance only happens when you're doing something proactive. In other words, sometimes what we do is we're more reactive. You know, okay, my wife seems to be upset, let me buy her some flowers. You know, my wife seems to have a bad day, let me buy her some flowers too. You know, you're being it's not so bad, but you're being reactive. If that's the only time you're romantic, then you're being reactive. But it's to be proactive, you know, out of the nowhere. No surprise, no birthday, no anything, no you're just doing it because you're thinking of her. So in other words, romance says, I don't have to think about you, I get to think about you. That's a huge difference, right? Romance communicates, I am paying attention. I am studying you. I'm checking you out. Like my wife, even though it goes a little bit to the stalkish sometimes, which I like it.
I'm your number one stalker.
I like it. She can stalk me all she wants. And so she does that a lot. I'm thinking of you. You know, like even I'm noticing that I'm doing that more than before. I am noticing that I'm doing that more than before, where I'm actually, hey baby, how are you? How's it going? How did it go? I'm always trying to check on to see. Sometimes I get to the point that I feel the need to be around my wife, so I say she's not around, so I'll text her, I'll call her, hey babe, how you doing? Which is really weird, because a couple of years ago I wouldn't say, you know, I like to be in my own bubble, but now I don't like to be in my own bubble for too long. You know, I have to have my wife. Hey, how you doing, baby? When are you coming home? So those are the things that meeting an unspoken need or desire is very important. Very important. We're gonna go and read Ephesians 5:22. Why do you think is it that romance kind of dies out over time? You know, let us know in the comments. What do you think is what might be the cause of it? Or maybe you've seen it in other relationships. What are the causes that why it dissipates, why it little by little dwindles down? But let us know.
Dennis, when we first got married in 2002, that's been a long time. So when we first got married, it was such an easy for us, but because we knew each other so well, and not every story happens like that. But in our case, we were such best friends that when we got married, it was not a huge transition, because we knew each other so well. But I remember the comments that people would tell us, like, "Are you know, just give it 1 year, the honeymoon phase will will end, or are you out of the honeymoon phase yet? And I'm proud to say that we've cultivated and nurtured that our relationship over the years. If there's anything that we've taken pride in, or that we've taken care of, is the relationship between us, between husband and wife. And so I think it's really important that a couple can sit down and just say, what are the things that are not happening that is causing our romance to die out? Because romance can die. It can die out, but it also can be resuscitated. I kind of think of it like a plant. Maybe a plant is something you have to constantly water. Too much water can cause it to die too. Yeah. There's things that you have to, what nutrients you got to add for the health of a plant. In our marriage, what are some things? If I know that if there's a couple that is lacking, something happened in their relationship that affected their trust, something silly like it could be that you forget to, this is an example out of the blue, but you constantly are always forgetting to pay a bill, and then these $29 fees or something like that. I rebuke you. Or but you constantly forget something. And so that's a simple example of how maybe, okay, I don't trust my spouse in this area to pay the bills. A lot of women do the finances, or the men, or vice versa, whichever one. But then I know that I have to work in this area and put some reminders. This is extra ingredients that I need to do to work in this area, so that the trust in my spouse. That's just a minor example, but it could be more serious. You just got to look at it and see, what are some ingredients that I need to work on? What do I need to add more water? I don't know if that's the best example. No, that's
good. That's very good.
But we should look at it.
Sometimes we got to prune things out in the marriage, that it doesn't affect the growth of it.
We have to nurture, and sometimes you have to cut things out. Yeah. That even includes relationships, friendships. Sometimes to say as much as sometimes that's required. Maybe it's for a season, maybe it's not. But the communication between the husband and spouse should be really open to where you can talk about those things, and the decisions that you make is not just to benefit one, is to benefit both of you and your family.
Oh, that's very good. And I wanted to go into real quick, Ephesians chapter 5 is a well-known passage, a chapter about marriage, and we see it. I want to read verse 22 and 24, but if you want to really study this, 22 to 31 is a great passage to kind of summarize everything, even the aspect of romance. But I want you to see the Passion version of verse 22 of chapter 5. And it says, "For wives, this means being supportive to your husbands like you are tenderly devoted to our Lord." Okay, check this. That's for the wives. Now for the men, on the verse 24, it says, "In the same way the church is devoted to Christ, let the wives be devoted to their husbands in everything." Now, the word that really hit me was the word devoted. And I want to go into what devoted is according to the dictionary. There was a third one, but the third one wasn't very nice. It was weird. So I'd say that has nothing to do with the word. But devoted means to give up or appropriate to or concentrate on a particular pursuit. And I love the word pursuit. It's when you're pursuing something. And I think a lot of times romance dies because we stop pursuing.
I think women like to be pursued. I think there's something about, I'm not just saying because in our situation, you only saw me as a friend in the beginning, but my friendship with you meant so much to me that I was, okay, if that's all we can be, then I will take the friendship, because I didn't want to lose our friendship. But a woman generally likes to be pursued. There's something about the man pursuing the female that, not in a weird way, but that conquers her, that wins her heart over. There's something about that makes a woman feel romanced.
And so with pursuing, we have to continue to pursue, because then what happens is, and again, one of the reasons why I felt strongly to really focus on the heart of the matters of the heart, is because everything relates to the heart. God is after our heart, and we must continue to align our hearts to focus on God. And in our relationship, we gotta every day we gotta align our hearts to our spouse. Make sure that our spouse, and we're attending to the needs of the spouse when it comes to the heart. Okay, so it's very important, and so that's why I love the word pursuit. You know, romance pursues. It pursues. You gotta pursue. Don't stop pursuing, okay? The core issue is that men and women need to be desired. Every man and every woman has a desire. Okay? And so we fall in love because one,
I just want to say that men and women need to be desired. There's marriages that it's a very hard state to be in, where you feel that your spouse doesn't desire you. You know, you never want to make it to a point where being your friend, we're friends. That's the core. That's a foundation of our relationship, is that we're friends. But it should never remain there. There's levels in our relationship that have to be, that we have to continue on. So I can imagine a spouse that doesn't feel that their husband or their wife desires them, how they feel in the heart, because it's a natural need, a natural want to feel that the other person desires you, the other person wants to earn your attention, your affection, you know. And so once again, those conversations with your spouse, I love you so much that if I know that this is affecting you and I have to work in this area of my life, then I'll do what it takes, because my heart is to please you. Just like the same way that we please the Father, that we please God, there has to be a part that we do to pursue God. He pursues us. Always He pursues us, but there has to be a part of us that makes the decision that no matter what, I want to pursue you, God. I want to do your will. I want whatever is important to you is important to me. Whatever makes you happy makes me happy. And in the same way, that should be with our spouse. But we've seen this where the marriages kind of fall into this friendship state of marriage, and it's just they're missing out on so much. They're missing out on such the blessing that goes beyond friendship.
Yeah, and romance to me is so important. Last week we talked about the importance of sex, right? Romance is just as important, if not even more important than sex, because sex has its limitations. You know, romance doesn't. You know, I don't believe romance has, where there's going to be a time that you're not going to be able to be sexually fulfilled. Okay, we talked about that. That's life. You know, that's life. Life happens. You know, but romance, it's the fire that can continue to go no matter what limitations we have. And so that's what helps even the sexual intimacy be at a greater level. It's when the romance is there, because romance is pursuing, when we pursue each other. And we can pursue each other no matter what. Even if we're in a walker, even if all we can do is wink at each other. That, you know, hey, you did a good job. Okay. So romance is so important. Now, we fall in love because we admire and desire the person we're dating. You know, that's when you're in a dating, you admire each other, right? That person makes us feel good about ourselves. So that's why it's so important that in romance we found ways to make each other feel good about ourselves.
It brings out the best in you, or it shows you areas that you can be better in. You know, something about you is that you always, you know, you bring out the best in me, but there's also areas that with love you talk about, hey, we can do this better, or, you know, you want someone that can counteract your when you're stagnant in your growth, you know. So it's also important that we can teach each other through love how we can become better.
And that's why we see the marriage as an institution that God created. And every institution needs to go through a process of molding, reshaping, adjusting as we grow, because we are growing organisms, and we're gonna be more mature than we were last year. The more mature, that's what our hope is, so that we grow. So it's important to do that. Okay, so element number 2, speaking love is your spouse's language, in your spouse's language, and that's very important. Okay, so for example, men and women have different needs. We talked about that in our first podcast. Men primarily need honor, sex, friendship, and support at home. Okay, women primarily need security, communication, affection that is non-sexual, okay, and leadership.
That's a big one.
And that's a big one. For my wife, that's a huge one. And the Word of God actually talks about the leadership in Ephesians 5. So it's very important that we able to lead our family.
And we teach our son. We have 2 kids. We have a daughter and we have a son, and we push more. You do more on Caleb, for him to make decisions, make the decisions. And what was
that's what I gotta. I'm okay. So one of my sayings, I haven't copyrighted it, but it's written, it's time stamped here. If you copyright it later, I could use that against you. But I tell them, I'm trying to raise a man. I'm trying to raise a godly man. So I tell my son, being a man is making decisions. So if you gotta make whatever decision you gotta make, sometimes he struggles with just making the decision on which ice cream flavor to get. I don't care. Pick one. I'm not gonna pick it for you, and he will push me to pick it. But it's very important to understand that we gotta make decisions. So that's what leadership is. So I tell him, being a man is making good decisions. Being a good man is making good decisions. And being a godly man is making godly decisions. At the end of it all, we're called to lead, so we have to lead. And that's what I'm trying to teach. And I think, if you can agree with me, women find that very attractive, right? A man that can lead. That's very romantic.
That's decisive, because women tend to, it's hard. Sometimes if I have too many choices, I don't know which one to pick, And so I think that's very, very attractive for a man to be decisive, a man to know have a vision, have a vision. And for our son, that's something that I really love that you do. Because for me, if Caleb was to ask me which ice cream, I'd be like, no, Caleb, you need to pick this ice cream. This is just an example.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that does a lot of damage, and we see that in a lot.
I'm like, no, you need this one. This one's not good for your teeth because you have braces. I overcomplicate things. But Dennis will be like, let him choose. He needs to make a decision. You're training them now.
It's like behind the scenes, he may be a mama's boy, but in action, I don't want him to be a mama's boy. I don't want him to have to call his mama, "Mama, what do you think I should do?" No, you need to make your own decision. Be a man. Be a man. Okay.
We want him to lead his family. Yeah. One day he will need to lead his family.
So now, men and women have a different way of seeing romance. Okay. They have different needs. For him, romance is sex and fun. Now, I will say that this is the
generalizations.
Yeah, these are generalizations. Now, if you're not that kind of man where it's all about sex and fun, and you're the kind that want communication and affection, I just want you to know we don't like you. You're making it harder for us. But there's a few of them. Now, it does not mean, and I know I'm gonna get a little bit on what's happening socially in our culture, but just because you're more affectionate and love to communicate more does not mean that you're a woman.
Or feminine.
Or a female. Okay, you're a man, but you learn to be a certain way, and you gotten adapted. Just like I need to learn to be a little bit more affection and a little bit more communication, because women, for her, romance is communication and affection. Okay, for men, it's sex and fun, and it's a short road. It's easy to have fun. It's easy to have, from sex on an average for a man can be 2 minutes. That's the average, 2 minutes. It's a short road. For women, it's a long road.
It starts in the morning when,
it's
when
a long
you
road.
wake up.
Boys to Men knew this. That's why they sang them, right? What is it called? Till the end of the road.
Oh.
And it's a long road.
Boys to Men. I got
Boys
it.
to
Okay.
Men.
Okay.
I know that was an inside joke. Okay. But it is a very long road. Okay. If you find yourself having fun and having sex and fun as a romance thing, and your romance time only 2 minutes, that means only the husband is being fulfilled, and that's what you don't want.
So for wives, it's more, oh, I've had such a long day, I've had a hard day, I just want to go to sleep, I just want to do my facial treatments and go to sleep, Yeah. But you're thinking about your needs, and for a male, for a husband, it's, oh my goodness, I've had such a stressful day, I just want to be with my wife, you know,
release.
And you don't think, okay, maybe I need to see how she's doing, or mamita, you're tired, or can I massage your feet, or
well, that's why it's important to do that throughout the day. So like it can backfire you if you try to do that like 5 minutes before you're hoping to to have some fun. And 5 minutes before you start talking to her a certain way, she's gonna notice.
Women are
what
smart.
do you want?
Women
what are you
know.
trying to do? You're trying to get something out of me. I don't feel like it right now. So it's important to nourish, to be intentional.
And a woman can feel used.
Yeah.
A woman can feel used. I know that's probably not, really nice to say, but
that goes back into not being appreciated.
Or she feels, it's just for this, but there's needs that they need. I like, with me and you Dennis prepares himself. He's like, okay, how is your day? He'll sit there and he'll be like, I know you want to talk. And I'm like, yes, I do. This is blah, 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 blah. But we have to come, we can't talk for hours tampoco, but we have to be able to meet each other's needs, not just our own.
So just to refresh real quick, romance for men is sex and fun, and it's a short road. For women, it's communication and affection, but it's the non-sexual affection, okay? It's really connecting with the heart, okay? So romance happens when you naturally learn to speak your spouse's language. Now, that's why it's important. We say that for women it's communication and affection, but maybe you're married to a woman that it's more about sex and fun. So you have to figure out which one is the need of them. Okay, and if it's your need as a man for communication and affection, then the wife needs to understand that, so she doesn't think that her way it's the same language for both of them. Okay,
there's a balance. Find the balance.
Find the balance. Men need to think sometimes like women, and women need to think like men. Doesn't mean that this the natural way of thinking, but that they're at least able to fill in the shoes a little bit.
Okay, I was going to say that.
Like, for example,
I don't want you to think like me.
Yeah.
I don't want you. But one of me is enough.
But you want to be understood.
I want to be understood.
You want to be understood.
Yeah,
that's the key word. Understood.
It's understood. To be in the other person's shoes.
Understood.
But I don't think I can handle another of me.
Yeah. And another tip for men is lower your voice. Your tone. It sounds sexier that way. Okay. That's bad. No, go ahead. Okay, so element 3.
Okay. So here's a question.
Okay.
Ladies, how could your husband's thoughts be more like your own? And how could your wife begin thinking more like you? Those are things that you can talk about. I'm sorry, before we move on. You can talk with your spouse about. Okay.
And as you're growing your marriage, you're gonna start noticing things and know what they're thinking. It can happen. Okay, where you're like, okay, she had a rough day, and then sometimes we know exactly what we're thinking about. And I think that's pretty awesome. Okay. Element number 3, communicating unique value. Okay. Value says there's no one like you. You have a place in my life that no one else has. I think if you can't find romance without value. Romance, there has to be an honor system. There has to be, it has to be the foundation of it's part of the foundation where there's no way, if there's no value to the person that you're trying to romance, then it's not romancing. It's not true romancing. It's you're lusting for her for a selfish desire, but you're not valuing the person.
I just thought about something that Ruthie had we speak a lot about this stuff, but she was asking, or we were in the conversation of why do some people choose to get married, and why some people choose to cohabitate. And I think for me, it has to do with the value. You know, when you choose to marry someone, you want to pay the price, you know. And the example that I used with her was, we put more importance to material things than we do to the covenant of marriage, you know. You don't go to a car lot and say, I want that car, and then drive it all around town, use it for a month, maybe 6 months, a year, and then decide, I don't want it. That, you know, there's a price, there's an exchange that takes place, and that means that vehicle has value to you.
Yeah, there's a parable, one of my favorite parables. I love this parable because it goes exactly what you're saying, and it's the parable that Jesus gave about the man who finds a treasure. Okay,
oh, that's awesome.
And I love it because, as a matter of fact, there was a moment that as a pastor, I needed to. I was listening to someone in pain, and this story out of nowhere. It's a story that before that day, I didn't read it until the last time I read it was in my teenage years, and I didn't really understand it, but God gave me that revelation at that moment. And it's the story of the parable where the man goes into a land and he finds a treasure, and he gets so excited. He gets so excited, and he decides to put it back in the land, dig the hole back, put it back under the hole, cover it, and then he went out and sold all his earnings, all his possessions to be able to buy that land,
to purchase the land,
because he wanted it to be his, you know. And that's when it comes to a marriage relationship, if you truly value it, you will pay the price for it. There's no freebie. That's why we so are against, and so is God against, sex before marriage, sex outside of marriage, because you're when you skip this value, when you skip this important element of valuing who you're with, then it's going to end bad. It's going to either end bad or it's going to cause serious chaos, because it's out of the perfect plan of God. We must value things. And so there's an excitement. There's an excitement when you get married and you're like, I paid the price. She cost me a lot, you know? And she can say the same thing. It cost her a lot to be with me. And then, so why do I love her? Because she's mine. I paid a price. Jesus.
We are valued.
We're valued by God because Jesus paid a price. We are his. And it's the same way. Sometimes I know I may be going off a little bit. Sometimes we say, why do you love your wife? Why do you love your husband? Oh, because he has a great heart, or because he's good to me, but that's only going to take you so far, because you know, like I even tell young people, why do you think you love this person and you want to marry this person? Oh, because she's so funny and she's so beautiful. And I'm like, so one day she may not be that beautiful. One day she may not be that funny. Is that enough?
Is that enough to hold you over?
Because
to keep you committed.
Yeah, because once you make that step and you pay that price, you need to know what that value of that price that you paid for is. Okay, so value is very important.
And if there's a spouse, a husband, even a husband, a wife or a husband that doesn't feel that they're appreciated or valued, it could be that your spouse doesn't realize that he's not giving you that place, that value. But you have a responsibility to speak with your spouse, because if you want your marriage to continue in that route, then you'll keep that to yourself, because they don't want to bother their spouse. But if you want to change, you those are things that you need to talk about. At first, talk with God in prayer, of course. Yeah. But you have to come to a point where you can talk about those things with your spouse. Yeah.
And so it's important to communicate value, okay? And how do we communicate value? Well, you verbally, through praise and encouragement. My wife does this a lot. She praises me and encourages me a lot. Okay,
I'm your number one fan. Yeah. I'm right there with God. I mean, right there. We're right there. But I will always encourage you, and it should be like that. Your spouse should be your number one encourager. Unfortunately, there are marriages where you see that the spouse is constantly putting down their spouse. And what do you really think about it? What are you doing to encourage and make your spouse feel good about them? If they don't feel, if you're the person that's closest to them and this is how you feel about them, what does it say about everyone else? So you should always be the number one supporter of your spouse.
Number one cheerleader. Mm-hmm. And the other way we communicate value is corporately through sacrifice and giving our best. And I can say that this is the best one for me to demonstrate to my wife. That's one of her favorites, that she sees the sacrifice, see that we're giving our best. And the other one is creatively with mental and emotional energy. And I know a lot of times women, their minds are everywhere. Their minds are everywhere thinking about everything. And it's always good to find creative ways to alleviate that stress, to alleviate those things. Sometimes it may be, like we said before, maybe stepping in and say, hey, baby, don't worry about it. I'm going to cook tonight. Don't have to worry about it. Or don't worry about this. Don't worry about that. And kind of let her know that we value her, that we value our spouse.
Here's another way. And this happens a lot with the dynamic of men and women. Women tend to talk a lot, and they tell you, men just want you to what happened, what was the result, but women want you to feel. They want to transport you there so that you understand every emotion, what was felt during that moment. They
the
want
location
you there.
Of the sun.
They want you to experience like you're going back in time.
What the wind factor was.
And so it's important for a good way to express mental and emotional energy is that sometimes the men will be like, oh yeah, okay. But their mind is in sports or the latest TV show or a video game. I don't know, something. And so we tend to go into that nothing box. Men,
she's talking about me.
They love the nothing box.
Amen.
And they'll be there and it's like an automatic response. Oh yeah, sí, mi amor, sí.
Get excited about it.
And so what happens is something that shows a wife that you're attentive and that you're actually putting energy is to really pay attention to what she's saying, so that way, because sometimes they'll say things that they need help with some guidance on their thought process.
There's warning signs being thrown out, and we're missing it because we love our nothing.
Yeah, and then the opposite.
We really do.
The opposite would be for female. What would be your advice for females when they're trying to take you out of the nothing box? We tend to talk a lot.
I think if we like we said earlier, if we focus on the needs of the man, have fun with them. There's a reason why we like the nothing box, okay? Mm-hmm. And so you got to find a substitute for it. It's not so much about you need to get out of your nothing box and listen to me.
Yeah.
It has to be, hey, babe, let's do something fun. Okay, what do you mean something fun? Mm-hmm. Whatever it may be.
Or mentally prepare you, like, mi amor, in a few minutes, I need to. Can I talk with you?
I do need that. Yeah.
Yeah, like I need to mentally prepare you.
Yeah. Yeah, like I can't say our secrets on YouTube, but there has to be certain tips that you guys as a couple have decided. What does that mean that no one else understands? Okay, for our home, we both speak Spanish and English, but unfortunately our kids have discovered quite a bit of Spanish. Okay, so my daughter suggested French, but then later she'll figure out French. So there has to be ways that we can communicate ourselves. Where this means, okay, we're gonna have fun. Or, hey, I need some alone time. Finish with your nothing box, because we need to have our time.
Something that has helped us also is that we have our sabbatical on Mondays. We take that's our sabbatical days where we don't do anything ministry related. I have a hard time with that. Dennis has mastered the concept, but I have. Because I'm constantly receiving information, communication, but something that I think we've been intentional about our dates on Monday. We'll either go to the movies or go out to eat, or it's my time with you. And that has been so amazing because you feel that you're valued, that you're a priority to your spouse. You know, set aside some time. It doesn't have to always be with money. Sometimes we'll watch a movie upstairs and no interruptions, you know. But like set time aside to make your spouse a priority, even if it's in the afternoon, one day in the afternoon, one evening. I don't know. I think it's important that you in a marriage that we take time aside. Don't let the things of life, the fast pace of this life overcome your marriage. You know, take time to give each other importance and give each other time.
That's so good. So just real quick, 3 things. How we communicate value. 1 is verbally through praise and encouragement. Mm-hmm. Okay. Comparatively through sacrifice and giving our best. And the third one is creatively with mental and emotional energy. Please share with us on the comments which one do you think is the most important to you and the most important to your spouse, because you got to figure that out. It's very important to figure that out. So I just wanted to have you give you the opportunity to share with us. I know that one of the listeners from I believe last week gave us some suggestions that I want to actually add possibly in one of the parts that we want to do about marriage, but maybe I have to do one later on its own just for that, which is when a believer and non-believer together, how can they make that work? And the Word of God really covers that, gives us some good advice on that. I don't know if you have anything else, but I wanted to go ahead and wrap it up. Our different definitions of romance matters, you know, the way we see it, you know. It's either going to set us up for high expectations and likely disappoint us, or it can, if we have the right definitions, then it can definitely help us grow and have success in our marriage. To succeed, we have to step outside of our world and come into our spouse's world.
I live for you, you live for me.
You live for me. He may not need long romantic dinners, okay? But she does. She may not need a surprise sexual escapade, but he does. Romance, and this is if you get anything out of this today, is romance is meeting your spouse's needs without them having to ask or beg repeatedly. The moment she asks, the moment he asks, is not going to help. Romance is stirred up. That fire is stirred up when it is a proactive situation. Okay.
But when you have to beg repeatedly or ask repeatedly, it does something to a person's heart. Because it's so important to have your spouse make them see or feel that you are intentionally thinking about them, that they don't have to push you to think about them. Like their focus is somewhere else. And they want it. It's great to know that you know that I'm focused on you quite a bit and you're focused on me quite a bit. And I know because she sends me pictures all the time and she'll communicate that with me. So it's very important. Romance always happens on purpose. It's not intentional. This is, it's on purpose. The more you romance your spouse. It's not unintentional. It is intentional.
Intentional. Purposeful.
Purposeful.
So the more you romance your spouse, the more passionate and healthy your marriage will become. Romance doesn't have to fade over time. It can get better year after year. Romance must be nourished, and it's essential to the perfect plan that God has for you in your marriage. So even if you are not married, it's important to kind of analyze these things and ask God to help you understand these things, so that way when you do step into a marriage, whenever you do make that decision, that you're ready and your spouse understands this importance. Because you don't want it to be where many marriages where the first year may be the best, or it may be really hard because we never understood this principle about romance. We never understood the principle about what is my purpose, what is the purpose of a marriage. But it's so important that we understand this and allow God to be part of our marriage, because God's perfect plan includes him in it. Okay. And so I just want to encourage you that if you're struggling with romance, the fire is going out, to think about these things. What is romance for your spouse?
What is romance for you?
What is romance for you?
And communicate that.
Okay? Well, that'll be all. Please let us know what you think about what we have said. Share with your thoughts on it. And we love you very much and hope to hear from you soon. Thank you for joining us in Matters of the Heart podcast. And I love you. We love you. And I love you, baby.